Hello everyone and welcome to the 2021 Nordic and Baltic EdTech 50. My name is Maria Spies. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Holland IQ and joined here today by Jonathan Viner, who's famous for Nordic EdTech news and other things too. So welcome Jonathan and thank you for co-hosting this presentation.
It's a pleasure. Thank you Maria for inviting me, and great to be here and looking forward to seeing the announcement of the top 50 Nordic and Baltic EdTech startups this morning. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Great. Well, look, let's make a start. This is a 45-minute session, and at the end of the session, everyone who's registered and everyone who comes along will get a recording. So that'll come straight into your inbox. On the agenda today, so a bit of a welcome from Jonathan and I. Jonathan's going to take us through a few things about ecosystem insights and what's happening in Nordics Baltics. I will then announce the Nordic Baltic EdTech 50 for 2021 and talk also a little bit about methodology and criteria for the Nordic Baltic EdTech 50, as well as we've done a little bit of analysis on the cohort this year and some comparison to last year. So I'll spend a few minutes doing that. But the most important thing probably of this morning is to meet the companies, some of the companies who are in the list. And each of those are going to spend just a few minutes talking about what they're doing in EdTech in their own startups. And so let's make a start. Let's move forward. So if you don't already know about Holland IQ is an impact intelligence platform. We have an amazing data platform for education, health and climate, and amazing customers all around the world. And if you're interested in learning more, please, of course, get in touch. Over to you, Jonathan, for a little bit more about what's happening in the ecosystem in the Nordic Baltic.
Thank you, Maria. And a whistle-stop intro to try and cover 8 countries in less than 5 minutes. So I will keep it short and sweet. But I think the first thing to talk about is that there is and has been a very well-established regional ecosystem across the Nordic and Baltic territories that really includes the 8 countries that we've got listed here. So geographically left to right, Iceland, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and then Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia are the eight countries that come together to form the Nordics and Baltics, and which are the 8 territories from which the Nordic Baltic EdTech 50 have been drawn. So there is a hugely well-established Nordic Baltic organization and ecosystem that is already in play, and where organizations are working incredibly closely together to foster and to grow an EdTech ecosystem and to grow the individual EdTech companies within it. I think that in part is being driven by strong, incredibly active national associations and national bodies who work both to grow the individual EdTechs within their ecosystem, but also to drive policy at a national and regional level to encourage their governments to take EdTech seriously in this kind of post-COVID environment. And as we'll see on the next slide, their efforts are being increasingly successful moving forward. I think we also see in those territories, and you can see that the particular organizations listed there, and it's great to see in EdTech Lithuania, one of the most recently formed, a new CEO and new full-time member of staff working there. And we're also seeing the beginnings of individual national associations in 2 of the smallest countries in Iceland and in Latvia. We also see across these territories a real focus on testing and co-creation. So working with practitioners, both in K-12, but also in adult and in higher education, to work together to test solutions with practitioners in real education environments, and to work with those practitioners in terms of developing resources that really meet their needs. So whether that's the Swedish EdTest, whether that's EdTest Estonia, whether that's the work of the incubator in the newly formed Helsinki Education Hub, we're seeing real focus on working with practitioners to make sure these solutions genuinely meet needs in the classroom, wherever that might be. And I think as a result, it's no surprise that the Nordic Baltic ecosystem is not just having an impact globally, and is not just seen globally as being incredibly prominent and incredibly powerful, but is also having a real influence on directing and leading the European EdTech agenda through the work of the European EdTech Alliance. And it's also worth mentioning at this stage the organisation N8, the Nordic EdTech Forum, that brings together and works for and represents the interests of entrepreneurs working in EdTech startups across this ecosystem. Just in terms of some of the kind of core trends that I'm seeing at the moment through the newsletter that I write and circulate every 2 weeks, the link is there at the bottom. The first thing I think is that there is a very distinctive approach to EdTech and to educational technology that is definably from Nordics and Baltics. And that is an approach which leads the world, both in terms of its pedagogical and its technological advancement. And indeed, there are companies, which we will see shortly, who are successfully exporting this to countries across the world. I think that distinctive approach is based on a couple of key criteria. It's based on testing, it's based on co-creation, as I've already mentioned, but it's about respecting the role of teachers and educators and pedagogues. It's about having well-being baked into it, which I think we will all agree, and as we'll see, is an increasingly important part of the educational and EdTech landscape moving forward. And I think what we're also seeing are companies, as my second point here, that are born global. The markets, the national markets in the Nordics and Baltics are small. Companies are growing at pace and are looking internationally to do that. And in many cases are growing internationally almost before they grow in their national markets. And their national markets are in some cases secondary to the importance of those key international markets. So, and Kahoot is an obvious example of that. But as we will see from our EdTech 50, that is vital for so many of the companies that's included, and it's a key feature of the excellent speakers that we've got and that we'll hear from shortly. Businesses are also growing increasingly by acquisition and by consolidation. So we're seeing moves across the ecosystem actually at two levels. So the acquisition of Uglo by ILT Education in Sweden, the acquisition of Lesemester in Norway by Sweden's Lexplore. Kahoot in the last 12 months have bought 4 smaller Nordic EdTech companies. So we're seeing lots of consolidation across EdTechs in the Nordics, but we're also seeing Nordics grow through acquisition internationally. So the Swedish EdTech Humley, for instance, has bought 3 UK businesses in the last few months. So I think we will see more of this moving forward as companies grow and scale, not just by organic growth and by growing customers, but also by buying other businesses and acquiring their customers as well. I think the other trend, or one of the other 2 key trends that I identify, is the rise of the Baltic 3, so Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Estonia obviously risen to a significant prominence through its exceptional PISA results last year. And obviously, its kind of digital economy has been brilliantly positioned to respond to the impact of the COVID pandemic, both in education, in EdTech provision, and beyond. But as I've already mentioned, what we are seeing, and as we'll see in the results of this year's 50, is significant increase in EdTechs from Latvia and Lithuania, growing rapidly, gaining scale and gaining funding. And reaching and growing, I think, to be a prominent regional player in our ecosystem. And finally, we are seeing significant government funding and significant recognition of the importance of EdTech post-COVID. I've mentioned Lithuania already, but I think it's worth stressing that they are developing a significant resource portal to enable teachers of all ages to access EdTech and to access an approved list of EdTech resources. And the development of the National Competence Centre will be one that I'll certainly be following through the newsletter with interest. And I guess certainly over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've also seen a 12 million euro funding commitment from the Estonian government to use EdTech to fill the gaps in students' learning created by COVID, and a similar fund, 18 million euros, allocated by the Norwegian government to support the acquisition of new digital educational technology resources to support the new curricula that were launched at the back end of last year. But also, I think, interestingly, to fill in the gaps where the commercial markets aren't going. So the development of resources in SAMI, for instance, but also particularly they've identified a pot of money specifically to help fill in the needs that teachers have, which commercial organisations aren't covering. So some interesting trends there in very, very brief top line numbers. And again, a shameless plug for my newsletter. It's free to subscribe. The link is at the bottom. I hope you'll take the opportunity to do so. And again, thanks to Maria and for all the speakers for joining today's session.
Thank you, Jonathan. That was a really great wrap around the Nordic and Baltic area. And if you're not on Jonathan's newsletter, I thoroughly recommend it. Let's move on to the 2021 Nordic and Baltic EdTech 50. Firstly, what are the sort of criteria? So it is focused on identifying young and fast-growing, innovative learning and upskilling startups, so right through from pre-K to workforce learning. Typically, there's a sort of criteria around less than 10 years old. Sometimes there are a few exceptions in circumstances where some teams are bootstrapped in the first few years or spin out of academic projects and so on. So it takes them a little while longer, but typically under 10 years, headquartered in the region or prominently focused on the region in terms of their market. They're pre-exit, they're not acquired, they're not listed, those sorts of, they're not startups anymore. And, as you can see, they're not mature incumbents and so on. So that's the sort of rough criteria. We do assess, there's something in excess of 1,500 EdTech startups in the Nordic and Baltic region. And one of the hardest things this year was to get to 50, because really there are some amazing teams doing amazing things, many, many hundreds. So getting to 50 was very difficult. We do look at these sort of 5 criteria: the market, the quality, attractiveness of the market, not necessarily geographic, but the segment in which the startup operates, the product, of course, the team in diversity, capital, access to funding or the ability to generate, and the momentum, positive momentum of the team. So they're the sorts of things we're looking for generally. Here is the 2021 Nordic Baltic EdTech 50. And so congratulations to all the teams who are on this map. And really, as I said, it was very difficult to get to 50. There are many hundreds of teams in startups of all shapes and sizes in the Nordic Baltic region, making an incredible impact on learning for children and adults alike. Here you can see our normal categories in terms of STEAM is always very strong in the Nordic Baltic region, and advanced technology sort of related there. And Nordic Baltic is known for innovation in education, quality in education, innovation and technology, and the 3 things together make a very powerful mix when it comes to EdTech, I guess, across the whole spectrum. And so we're seeing teams right up in the workforce and skills, digital content, of course, online learning, language learning is big as well. So here's the 50. We'll come back to this, of course, and we will publish the map as well later on. But here's the 50, and congratulations to all those teams. We have done a little bit of analysis of what's happening here. So this is interesting in that now, this is the 2nd year, and we will do this annually. And so we can do a bit of comparison about what's happening there. But 2021 does see, a bit of a spike in those startups servicing workforce. And I think that COVID has brought along so many changes, but the changes to the world of work is something really, really significant, and very difficult skills gaps all over the place. And so we're seeing some strengthening EdTech servicing that area. But of course, K-12, especially in Nordic Baltic, K-12 absolutely dominates. And so moving forward to the age of the startups, given that we've got that sort of typically the 10-year limit, this is an interesting sort of pie chart because it shows the strength at all stages. And that is indicative of a very strong ecosystem where you have, nearly 30% of these startups are under 3 years old. And so that means if they've been through that assessment process, they are accessing capital, they've got a good team, they're in the right market, their product is developing, and they're getting traction. And so that's wonderful to see, but also good to see that, almost 50% in that real growth phase. And Jonathan, when you were talking before about startups in the Nordic Baltic having an impact globally, these are the teams, the sort of typically the 4 to 6 and 7 to 9-year-old teams who are really taking things, of course, beyond the region, making an impact globally. And then moving forward to the sort of cutting it down a little bit more to the subsectors. This is interesting. Look how balanced that wheel is. We don't see that in every geography. We do see, you know, between advanced technology and STEAM, you know, a third or more in that sort of advanced area, 20% in digital content and online learning. That's a broad category, of course, but it's very balanced. And compared with last year, there's been an increase in the digital content and online learning. And I think definitely in the K-12 space particularly, there's a big demand for digital content and instructional materials, you know, digital instructional materials. So we're seeing that in this mix as well. And finally, in terms of the geographies, Sweden takes a sort of large chunk, a 30% chunk of the 100, with Finland 20, so 50% from those two geographies, those two countries. But you do see a really good spread: Denmark, Lithuania, as you talked about, Jonathan, Norway, Estonia, Iceland, and Latvia as well. So you know, similar profile to last year, although we've seen a bit of swapping between Finland and Sweden in terms of the volume there. So that's a little bit of an analysis of what's happening inside these hundreds. But really, one of the most important parts of the session today is to hear from the speakers. I'm going to invite Bjorn on stage. Let me just get you on stage, Bjorn. Bjorn Rustbergand is the founder and CEO of Inspera. So Inspera, let me just, hi Bjorn, how are you? I'm going to share your presentation. Thank you for joining us today. Really looking forward to learning more, and I know the audience is as well. Let me just share your presentation so we can start that up. There you go, and over to you, Bjorn.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you for nominating us. I'm proud that we're part of the great list of startups and scale-ups. So I'll give you a brief introduction to Inspera. So we are basically an assessment company. We're reinventing educational assessment, and we're trying to make that as fair, reliable, and authentic as possible. I would say that we are probably in the phase now of scale up. We have starting to get more customers outside of Norway or of the Nordics than what we actually have in the Nordics, and we have customers like both in New Zealand and Australia as an example. So that just shows how Nordic EdTech can get legs, and if you have a service that truly has a product fit, you can serve it anywhere. We've been in the business for actually quite a lot of years, but Inspera Assessment, which is the product which we deliver, which is basically a full cycle examination service that kind of handles the whole examination process. That's kind of a product that we've had in the market for 5-6 years. I just want to say a little bit about being Scandinavian, because I think that's very, very important for us. And sadly, it's too many that wants to copy Silicon Valley. And I think we have, being from the Nordics, we have a lot that we can actually be proud of. And we've been in the forefront of digitizing education. For us, also transforming to e-assessment. But we also have this great kind of value of balance between work and life, but also school life balance. And that is something that I think is very, very often underestimated. And I think it makes us as team make better products. We have more empathy. I think we're just doing things better by having this a more balanced environment. I also want to highlight the nature, because that's inspiring for us, because we all have we are on the journey to take care of the planet. And of course, reducing the number of trees and paper is important, but it's also to provide user experiences that are clutter-free, that are clean. This is my thesis, you can't really serve education globally unless you have a diverse team. So we have around 25 different nationalities. And I think that's really, really important to be able to serve the global village. Because the educational needs across the world and across different levels of education are very, very diverse. And if you think that you can have, a hammer and a nail and you hit all kind of problems with that, you're missing. So when we are delivering, for example, in Caribbean, the way that we configure, the way we approach the implementation and basically success is different than what we do, at larger universities in UK or Norway. EdTech, I think, is very important, but we must remember it starts with education. It's education first and technology secondary. And we are stating, we are an assessment company. That means we need to know psychometrics, how to make valid and fair assessment, as well as by heart as we know how to make technology scale. And I just want to emphasize that. That's a core DNA for us, and I think it's very important for the sector to not lose the educational part of it. For us, it's if you want to transform education, and for us, primarily in assessment, you need to work with the leading institutions. And we have the 2 top leading institutions in the UK. And that's very important for us to basically get the credibility and get the change process in other countries and other universities, for example, to back it by best practice with the leading innovators that we're working with. This is Oxford as an example. On the value proposition, on what we offer to be more clear on the e-assessment solution, we have a pretty broad kind of approach. So we're building kind of a fully seamless ecosystem. So it's one platform for all tests and assessment. We support the whole entire examination cycle, and we have to handle and tackle security as well as efficiency. So if it's not integrity in the new normal world, like you can't trust who's been taking the exam, it doesn't matter how efficient it was to set up the exam or conduct it, because the results are not credible. Of course, the key stakeholders here, for example, the test takers, they need to be delighted. They need to feel that this is a stress-free environment, and we're striving towards that. But with a new normal where remote is as normal as on-site, we have to provide kind of the business continuity so that actually our institutions can choose, not when they plan it, but when they want to deliver it, if the exam's going to be on site or remotely. It's basically just a choice. It's not something you really need to plan for. And then moving into kind of the world of working smarter, being more data-driven, we are also investing heavily in what we call smarter testing. I just want to end on basically showing a little bit how the map has changed for us over the last 1.5 years. 1.5 years ago, we had only one core product. It was Inspera assessment. And when COVID hit us, we had the problem of addressing integrity of the tests, because many of our institutions couldn't switch to open book exams, and that means they were doing their closed book exams. And then it's easy to cheat potentially, unless you lock down the environment, unless you provide better ways of checking that is actually the real test taker that is sitting the test. So we built kind of a built-in lockdown browser to make this experience seamless. We have been building ID verification to make flexible ways to do 2-factor authentication to really validate, not just by password, but also actually by facial recognition, that it's the same person. And we've also had to address kind of remote proctoring, where a lot of the third parties that we considered were having too invasive data privacy policies, or it was not this clutter-free user experience, so that the test takers were either intimidated or distracted by somebody sitting intensely watching them. So we've basically had to address all this and more which was problems that we hadn't really thought of 1.5 years ago. And I think that's also part of the great ecosystem of the Nordics, that you have engineers, you have educators that really want to solve these problems, and they really feel the pain of our customers, and then we're actually able to roll out these changes pretty quickly in a good and a secure way, so to benefit students alike. Thank you.
Bjorn, thank you so much. You touched on a whole range of things that are very important. Obviously, you know, in being inspired from your own geography, the importance of thinking about the education and being good at education and technology and thinking about education, and the whole, you know, the way in which your organization responded to, you know, the impact of COVID for and being empathetic to what the learners were going through. Thank you so much. That was really, you put a lot in a very short period of time. Very inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Our next speaker today is Anne-Lisa Wahl. Anne-Lisa is the CTO and COO of Attensi. And thank you so much for joining us today. And over to you.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. And thank you for nominating us to this list. It's great to be in the company of so many other great companies as well in this sphere. And as you will see, we are one of the players in this workforce segment of the report. So a bit about us, Attensi. We are born and bred in Oslo. And as Björn said, we're also thinking that being Nordic is a huge competitive advantage for us going out in the world and spreading the forefront of corporate learning. So basically what Attensi does is that we use game technology and 3D simulation to create learning simulations with very high impact, primarily for the corporates. We are 120 people in Oslo. We're also expanding now to London and Boston, and we have some 150 different corporate customers. We also have a few higher education institutions among our customers, but the main group is among the corporates. So basically, what we try to instill in all our simulations and in everything that we do across the sectors is to make simulations and learning objects that are realistic, both in look and feel, but also in experience. So let's say you're having your first day at a gas station. Well, you are to be trained in a virtual gas station with virtual customers and virtual tasks and the stress level and the noise and everything, like experience everyday work. And then we gamify it. Those of us who founded Attensi came from the entertainment gaming sector, and we know everything about how to use game technology and behavioral psychology to make things fun, and fun drives motivation, and if you're motivated you will train more, and thus you will create impact. And then capture all the data that you get through these very interactive learning simulations. We get lots of data, and we're able then to prove to the customers that they can change behavior, they can then close the learning gap, and they can actually then get a better prepared and trained workforce out there. So basically, why does our brain get such kick from games? What is it in game technology that makes it tick, basically? Well, if you use game technology and if you use 3D simulation, something that really, really appeals to you, it will trigger all parts of your brain. It will trigger your emotions, your instincts, and your thought processes, and that's basically everything you need in order to change the behavior. And then we will see a repetition graph, basically, where if you do a one-off training, like a typical classroom training, we all know that you get a learning spike there and then that will double over time. But if you then get some boosts or notifications or spikes that will enable you to train over time, and you train because you're motivated to do so, you will repeat the training, and then the best practice and the learning curriculum will increase over time. So basically, this is one example from a big Nordic retail chain. So the customer challenge was that they wanted to train all their employees in greater customer experience, because, I mean, if you choose one store over another, is mostly about pricing of the goods or the customer experience. And they were good on pricing, so they wanted to really up their customer experience. We did the training, and we saw an increase in revenue over the measured time between those stores who trained the most compared to those stores that trained the least. And those of you, if any of you know retail, you would know that a 3.1% increase in revenue is massive. So basically, I mean, gamification triggers us and it makes the learning stick. Our product offering is basically a software as a service platform where we have an editing tool that you can use yourself to self-service tools to create all the simulations and the learning content of your preference. And then this will conceptualize itself into 4 different gamified products. So these are kind of templates that you could populate with your own curriculum and your own content. So either being a full 3D simulation where you can move around, being behavior, or skills, which is a more quiz-like and rapid mobile-first kind of tool suite. So customers are embracing us across all sectors, and we're expanding across the globe with them. So with that, thank you.
And thank you so much. That was really interesting. What we've noticed over the last couple of years is that any sort of immersive training, particularly in anything hands-on or physical like retail or heavy machinery and things like that, the growth in simulated learning has been explosive. It's very, very interesting the way that those industries have just taken up this type of training. You know, something happened, I guess, a few years ago in terms of the technology, because it became much easier. And like you say, it's you know, you can do the tools yourself. So the learning and development departments are being able to build these things themselves now. And I think this is a game changer. That was really interesting, and no doubt, I've no doubt you're going to continue growing all around the globe. So congratulations on your traction, and thank you for that presentation. Great. So the next speaker, Matt Montel. Matt is the CEO of Lingvis, the co-founder and CEO of Lingvis, which is sort of quite famous, really. I'm going to hand it straight over to you, Matt.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a really pleasure to be in this call. So, yeah, my name is Mike Müntel, and in a weird way, I started building a language learning company. While actually my background is in nuclear physics. I was working at the Center of European Nuclear Research for almost 10 years, and I was part of the Higgs discovery team. So it's a weird which twists the life makes. But here we are. This company is all about learning faster and using science and very advanced technology to actually make people to learn faster. When companies start their pitches, they start usually from problems. That what was really a problem for me was that learning is very, very time consuming. And the reason why it's very time consuming is that each brain is very unique, and it's very difficult to keep track. Teachers can't track what do you know, and it's very difficult to build it into the programs as well. So it's not really done very much. And in this century, we have also another problem, that we have way too much information to absorb. So it's it was not a problem 30 years ago, but now it's a problem that you have a lot of information, and choosing what to learn takes also a lot of time. And as learning is cognitively demanding, then mostly educational applications, they have low retention rates, and companies try to fix this with gamification. But what turns out that people learn to play the game, but not always the subject. And it's especially true for grown-up people, where the self-determination theory by Ryan and Tessie and popularized by Daniel Pink shows very convincingly that actually what drive the motivation are the results. And so this is how we have approached the problem, that we wanted to make learning order of magnitude faster. And we have technology. We have some data that it works already. There is one university study done few years ago that showed that we can teach 4 times faster. Since then, we have improved a lot. In certain segments, we can teach almost 10 times faster, but there is still a lot of space for improvement. And the way how we approach it is that first, we built this technology for language learning. That's why people know us as language learning company. And the technology works on language learning already. And now in the next step, our vision is linking this language learning to media content that people want to use anyway. Read books, listen music, watch videos. And then as the next step, we can scale this technology to other fields of education. And there are already a lot of proof points that this is working, because some of our users are building language learning courses to actually learn history or learn geography. And even myself, I learned pilot studies like that. So, and here is actually the core of the technology. That what we basically do is it has 2 components. We analyze what people want to learn or have to learn, and then we accelerate the learning. You can just take a language learning as an example. That imagine there are 1 million words in a language, in English, but an educated people know probably 20,000. It's 2%. So you really do not need to know everything. And we can filter out what do you need for your field of interest, what do you already know, and then we can prioritize these things, what you do not know, so that it adds the maximum statistical value and unlocks the most knowledge for you. And then we accelerate the learning in the next step, so that when people learn, in every 10 or 5 seconds, we measure how the memory works. We create very precise memory maps, so we know how people forget things. And then we can tailor all of the exercises in real time, so that it links to already existing knowledge that makes them to stick much better. And then we can reinforce this knowledge in a certain time intervals. And it's optimized for the faster learning, and it works really well. So from the UX, it looks very simple, but actually the real technology or the powerful AI is under the hood. And I think now my time is up, so I will just talk about our team. So as you see, there are a lot of PhDs, me as a nuclear physicist, then cognitive scientists, and one of the best scientists in the field that combines artificial intelligence, natural language processing, linguistics, and cognitive science. And the engineering part is built by people who built Skype. Our chairman is the technical co-founder, and CTO was the leader of core technology team. So really solid technology, and now we're going to scale up, and we are hiring chief marketing officer. If you know some great chief marketing officer, let us know.
Thank you so much, mate. That was really interesting. And I think, language is the basis for all learning. And it is super interesting to see how the power of what's the complexity that sits underneath language learning and unpacking that language learning can absolutely be thought of in other domains. And we're seeing that starting to happen, which is wonderful, because if you can crack language learning, then really probably you can crack other topics as well. So thank you so much for that.
And isn't it great to see the broader ecosystem as well? Just the yes. Ecosystem that we've already seen, just how the innovation from Skype is now beginning, and the experience that founders and the businesses have gained from those experts that have grown and scaled those businesses now trickling down and being seen in education, tackling the world's real problems, I guess.
Yes.
Great to see.
Yeah, that is absolutely. Okay, our next speaker, Anna Nordahl-Wesling. Anna is the CMO and co-founder of Sana Labs, a team that we know really well. And Anna, we had the pleasure of pretty much touring the world with you back when the world was open in 2019. And so I'm really interested to hear and looking forward to hearing about your journey up until now.
Yes. So hi, everyone. And it's, I don't know if it's okay to say good morning still, but I'll do that. And thank you, Maria, for the wonderful introduction. And thank you for highlighting Sana Labs at the top 50. So yes, I'm Anna, and I'm the CMO and co-founder of Sana Labs. And as many of you know, with the breakthroughs in AI, we no longer need to use one-size-fits-all training models. And instead, we can make personalized collaborative learning at scale available to accelerate competency development. And that is exactly what we do at Sana Labs. And when we founded Sana Labs now 5 years ago, it was on the hypothesis that by applying the latest breakthroughs within AI on the immense data sets that are created when we learn online, we should be able to personalize learning at scale. And 2 years in, we actually succeeded in a global competition to also benchmark the technology. And we realized that we had developed the leading tech to personalize learning at scale. And we then started to help every single learner learn the same content in half the time and remember it 3 times longer. And what we offer today is an all-in-one learning platform, enabling organizations around the world to design, deliver, and optimize their most business-critical courses. And that is through one fully integrated experience. And some of our partners also use Sana as a complement to their existing LMS or LXPs to supercharge authoring and personalization. So today we help global pharma companies accelerate their sales training of new medicines. We elevate onboarding for the world's largest retailers, and we make sure that large and medium-sized organizations in the Nordics can be kept compliant in half the time, just to mention a few of the use cases. And I also wanted to highlight a few others. We're super proud also to share that we've helped over 100,000 accountants reach mastery and pass their certifications. And we also successfully helped upskill over 100,000 healthcare workers during the pandemic in 2020. So yeah, that was a beautiful use case to us as well, to be able to step into and really help bridge the learning gap that that happened due to COVID-19 and the fact that we didn't know how to handle this disease when it hit. So Sana makes learning smart, personalized, and engaging. And here I'm also specifically proud to share with you that we have an average net promoter score of 63. And this can be compared to, for example, Spotify's average NPS of around 47, and Apple, looking into their net promoter score, it's usually in the 50s. So we're very, very proud to see that what we have created are truly appreciated by the end user and the end learner as well. And the core parts of the platform that we are charging our partners competency development with are Sana Author, which is our collaborative course creator tool, where we actually can help authors create courses up to 10 times more efficiently by the use of AI automation. And with Sana Learner, we see that Sana can then help assess each learner's knowledge through and see their exact knowledge level and calculate their knowledge gaps, and then create the personalized learning path, helping each learner reach mastery as efficiently and as engaging as possible. And then last but not least, I also wanted to share the Skills.io feature, where Sana help every learner develop the right skills to evolve within the organization by mapping skills to roles. But we didn't stop there. So today, the Sana offering is personalized skills training at scale, as I've been speaking about, in combination with cohort-based collaborative live sessions, where we have actually incorporated all of the things that we like about classroom training into a digital live setting, incorporating social, collaborative, competitive, and all the live elements that really excite us. So this is what we think is truly the next level in terms of accelerating competency development on yet another level. So we are actually fusing personalization and collaboration together into one holistic experience that's available at scale. So yes, thank you.
Anna, thank you so much. It's just so wonderful to see. I mean, you obviously talked about this and other presenters did too, really a focus on learning science, and how wonderful that people in organizations all around the world can draw on the really deep knowledge of experts like yourselves at Sana Labs to build learning processes, learning experiences for their teams. That wasn't always the way. People were left to their own devices, but it's wonderful to see this making such an impact. Congratulations and thank you so much. Jonathan, you had your microphone off. Have you got
I was just about to say we'd lost your camera, but you're back in the room, so that's great. That was all.
I'm back.
Okay, but you saw the presentation.
Yes, the presentation, you
That's
saw it
good.
all. It was great. Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
Anna.
Anna.
It was great.
Really appreciate it. And last but not least, let's move to the I know it's going to be a great presentation. What a wonderful startup, Funzi Ape, the CEO and founder and president of Funzi. Please take it away. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, thanks. And wishing everyone a tremendous Tuesday. You know, Maria, she's 10 hours ahead of us or whatever, and we know from her that it's going to be a wonderful day. So thank you for that. And thank you also for including Funzi on this Holland IQ's list. The Funzi is a bit different, or quite a lot different than the rest of the startups on the list. We exist so that everyone on the planet, the 90% of the population that nobody actually focuses on in the EdTech space, or most of the people don't, that these 90% of the population, the majority of the human population, who all have access to a mobile device, that they actually also would have access to the skills that they need to actually become the better versions of themselves and get a better livelihood, lead healthier lives, and create better communities, and thus have a better future for the whole planet. That is our goal. And we see ourselves as the spark that actually gives and ignites that hope for learning on those mobile devices all around the world. We've been around for quite some time. 2014, when we founded the partner, the Funzi, we started with an app, and over the years, we've had to create a couple of things. One of them is a pedagogy. That is a new pedagogy because nobody had actually been teaching population en masse, large parts of population, on mobile devices so that the pedagogy is effective. Secondly, we had to create a technology that is unique to us, that allows us to deliver the mobile courses that we create that to those masses at the lowest possible cost. And then finally, once we had validated the science and the technology worked and the users loved it, we also had to create a model that would enable us as a privately held organization to start producing significant revenues and grow to become the company that we can become. Today, Funzi is available on all mobile browsers at funzi.mobi. And when you go there, you will find free courses that focus on the core skills for humanity to succeed in the future. We talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about employability, we talk about sustainability, we talk about futures literacy skills. We also talk about health-related information, and the impact that Funzi is having can be seen in two places. 2015, when the refugees started pouring into Europe, in just 6 days, we launched About Finland, a service that actually was used in the end by almost 80% of the refugees who came to Finland. And another occasion, COVID-19 in 2020, in just 6 days, we built a solution for the South African population that then was launched there as a part of their nationwide, sort of like how to fight COVID. The other component on Funzi are the premium courses. The premium courses we have created based on content from Pearson, our global content sourcing partner, and those materials enable people to upskill them to get a better job or a new job. Most importantly, the users love us. We have had more than 9 million learners all around the world, and the course completion rate of our courses is around 5 to 10 times higher than compared to those free available courses that you find on Coursera and the other players. More than 95% of the feedback is positive. Actually, we've had over the years just 2 negative feedbacks. And this is something that really works. Now, many startups talk about billions of dollars as their potential, but we actually say trillions of dollars. There's 2 markets that we are addressing. With the same service and the same courses, we're on one hand focusing on the so-called EdTech gap. That is the gap between users spending time within the digital learning, but not actually the revenues not being produced. That's also something that Holon IQ has been pointing out. And the other market is then the skills mismatch challenge pointed out by the World Economic Forum. So 2 markets, reaching out to the large population directly and also reaching to those individuals who are in the education sector. We address these 2 markets by having 2 types of partners. Marketing partners such as Facebook or Ayoba, or now the recently announced partnership with Indosat Ooredoo, Indonesia's number 2 mobile operator, that allow us to become a part of their base service set. Base service set means that it's like a SMS or a mobile messaging service or WAP or mobile internet. And then the other part is sales partners, such as Snaplify in the African continent, Excelink in Africa, Sima Media in Latin America, and all around the world, that allow us to actually enter with the same service, with the same courses, the actually existing educational market. These 2 things allow us to take a pincher movement towards a market that nobody else is addressing, because it's quite lonely out there. You as Holon IQ know when you do these regional things, there's always regional or national players, but there isn't a global player. And our aim is to actually become that global, or still continue growing to be and continue being that global player. Our partner list exists of science, policymakers, companies that have access to large users, and also NGOs, because we believe that learning is a human right and as such belongs to everyone. We are a weird bunch. Over the pandemic, we've grown from about 10 full-time equivalents to 35 or something, and it's all been done, online. So Funzi is the tool that some could say it's going to be the Spotify of learning, but we say it's actually going to be the human rights and human future on every mobile at no cost when possible, and with a chance to upskill yourself for a moderate fee. That's Funzi. Thank you.
Ape, thank you so much. Well, it's a big vision. You've got big scale, and as I love the model. It's such a worthwhile vision, and hugely also partnering with all different people in different sectors, whether it be government or tech companies or social media or publishers, or to make an impact on all those millions of students, hundreds of millions of learners, then partnership is the way to go.
And I must say that the beautiful thing, these months, we're seeing that vision actually become reality. And that's mind-blowingly cool to actually see that momentum starting to pick up, that inertia. We can't be stopped.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Congratulations, warm congratulations on your traction and all the things that you're doing. It's making a big difference. So that comes to the end of our speakers for tonight or for this morning. And now just another quick look at the 2021 Nordic Baltic EdTech 50. Again, congratulations to all those teams who are on this year's list, and to the hundreds of others who are working hard and doing a great job all around the Nordic Baltic region. Jonathan, have you got 1 or 2 words that you'd like to also finish up with?
Thanks, Maria, and thank you again to everybody for attending and for our great speakers. I think 4 points that jump out to me very quickly that come from all of our speakers. I think the speed and agility of Nordic and Baltic EdTech has been amply illustrated by all of our speakers today, and I think that's really important. I loved Bjorn's reference, an analogy of hammers and nails, that idea of personal, and obviously from Sana, that and many of the others, but that idea of personalizing, delivering the right learning solution, I think is so important to Nordic EdTech and so indicative of its strength. I mentioned internationalization, but again, everybody has talked about the global power and the global reach of EdTechs from our territory. And I think finally, just for me, just the impact on learning. These are not vanity products. These are not vanity projects, as Arpe amply illustrated. But I think just helping learners to learn more quickly, more effectively, at better quality, and again, just the strength of the product market fit. These learners love using Nordic EdTech, and that's absolutely brilliant to see. And congratulations again to everybody on this list. It was an incredibly difficult job, I know, getting it down to 50. But thank you again for inviting me to be part of it again this year. It's been great. And here's to the ongoing success of Nordic EdTech going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, everyone. For those of you who are registered, you will get the recording of this presentation in the next few minutes. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.